This is a tutorial on how to do HDR photography editing for real estate media. So to start, just a quick overview is you start with your camera, you go to a property, and you set your camera up to take a certain number of brackets. Whether that's 3, 5, or 7 is usually the preset. I have 3 that are here ready. It's originally from a 5 bracket, but we only need 3 really to get something. And then you can, get your own workflow from there on how many you like to choose. So to start, you have a middle, kind of a normal. You have an underexposed, which gets you your windows. I'll explain it. And you have your overexposed, which gets the inside nice and bright. So that's the basics of starting when you take pictures with your camera for real estate. From here, and we're using, so I use a program called ON1 Photo RAW. It's similar to Lightroom, but far better, and it's not a subscription. It's only just barely $50 as of 2026, a one-time fee. They have a subscription version, but you choose which one you want. So let's move on. I'm gonna grab each one of these by shift selecting the dark, the middle, the over. Then you right click, go to create HDR. It's gonna run through its process. It brings up this window, what it's gonna do. You don't worry about any of the settings right here. We're gonna do that after, but it takes the 3 images, you hit save, and it's going to take those 3 images and give you a brand new single image merged into one. Here is our base HDR merged image. You can see now that we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So right here is our merge. You can see right there it says a new extension at the end, dot on photo, where these are, I use a Canon, and these are the RAW formats extensions from the camera, the .cr3. And that brings up another point, is when you shoot in RAW. And the reason is the RAW format of a camera gives you full color editing over the details of a image, like just the shadows, just the highlights, just the whites, just just the contrast and just the saturation. It gives you fine detail, so don't ever shoot in anything other than RAW if you want to have those controls. All right, so we have our merged right here. On the right, you can see we have all our tools, settings, sliders, and then over on the left, there's some more tools over here, and we'll be going over what's used for this. So the first you want to start with, because when you shoot real estate, you usually use a wide angle lens, so it distorts the image. If you look right here, you can see it's curved. Right there, it's got a curve to it. And even over here, there's like a bend that happens. So the first thing you want to do after you do your merge is go down to lens correction, turn it on. I have made a preset already for mine, and you see how it popped? Now it's nice and straight. To show you, and you can see right here, it turned to Canon, and this particular lens is the one I used. But if you click on here, you see all these different camera types. And then once you click on one, then you get hundreds of various lenses that are associated with that camera. This is already installed in ON1. You don't have to add any of this, so it's just there. And then once you choose your Canon or your camera and then your lens, you can make a new preset out of it. And that way you just choose this, click it, and every time you add an image in, it fixes itself. So first thing I do is I'll come down to color fringe. I just push this all the way up. You can kind of sometimes see a little bit of difference. That's like little purplish, bluish things that happen like at the edges of, you know, these little fine edges that you might see. So it's just good to push it. This is fall off is like a vignette. You see how it gets a little brighter. Just push it up, midpoint. Not much of a difference, but you know, brighten up the edges, take off the darkness around there. And that is all I do. This right here is a further distortion. So if something's not quite fitting right, or it doesn't look right, you can push it a little bit more. And then you just do Command Z to undo, because I'm on a Mac. All right, that's the first thing. Now we go to our tone and color, and right here you can see some tabs. Go to Effects, and this is basically a filter. If you click on here, you see all these things that you can add as additional enhancing the images. And one of them, it creates by default, called HDR. So here's where you kind of do a few more adjustments before we really get started. See, if you push this around, you kind of see what's happening to the image. I will usually just push this up a little bit to 150. By default, it's at 100. Detail, sometimes, you know, the cameras always don't, even though you're perfectly focused in your settings, you know, they'll still be a little soft, so you can further enhance, like right there. So if I undo, it's at 20. Maybe just push it up just a little bit, say to 30. And you can, to check your work, you can do Command Z, which undoes, and then Command Shift Z is like redo. So if you look, you can see it's just a slight little difference in sharpness. And then you have clarity that can give you a little bit more. Push that up to say 15. It's all personal preference on what looks good. So I'm just giving you a general number, and kind of just so you can see the difference in what's happening. So undo, redo, you can see a slight jump in crispness in there. And then you got some highlights. You can see what's happening there. Like specifically pay attention to the window out here. So if I undo, we're back at 0. And if I push that down just a little bit, let's see, if I 0, maybe to about -25. And if I undo, redo, undo, redo, you can see it takes some of the blown out whites out. Shadows, maybe push these up a little bit. You can see how it helps brighten the image, but you don't want to do too much, because then you start putting noise in the image. And then as we add more layers, like I said, this will all be done within 4 layers. I'll push this up, say to 25, undo, redo. See a little bit more brightness. And then right here is kind of a bit of a, give you more vibrance, saturation, just to enhance the colors, but we're not doing that there. And that's it. That's all you have to do under HDR look. Let's go back to develop. And then we're going to go to right here, contrast, and push that up just a little bit, maybe to about 30. You see the difference it made right there. make the colors a little more vibrant, whatever. Highlights, like I said, once again, if you set 0, push them down, that's too much. Maybe to, let's see, -10, let's see how that looks. Undo, redo, undo, redo, that might be too much. Let's go to -5. So there's that. Midtones, like I said, this is why you want to shoot RAW, because if you shoot straight to JPEG, you'll have these sliders, but you're not going to have the fine adjustment control within the image itself to adjust. It'll just give you, it'll adjust everything, not just the specific midtones. So if I grab that, push it up just a little bit, but like I said, not too much, because we'll start putting noise in the image. You don't want to do that. So maybe about 20. So if I undo, redo, you can see how it helps brighten it a little bit. Maybe a little more shadows. Maybe push that up to 20 as well. Undo, redo, undo, redo. So you see how it's getting brighter. Whites, let's see. You know, if we go higher, oh, we really start blowing things out. Start going lower, not a whole lot really changes. So I don't know, let's just throw it down to 5, just as a something. Blacks, you have to be careful with this, because this really messes up your image if you do too much. See how it gets like a weird grain, discolored texture. So you don't, like other parts will look okay, but you see the dark areas really get enhanced too much. So this one you might want to usually do like, just like maybe -5, and sometimes you only do like -1. But you see the slight difference where it just makes things a little bit darker in the dark areas to enhance them, give some more contrast. Structure, like I said, you put that up, you see what that does. Just takes away a little bit more of the softness. So if I put it at +10, undo, it's very subtle, but it's there. Same thing with haze. I will push this down a little bit. Let's say if we go to 10, undo, redo, it's very subtle. So you'll find your own. I don't want to do too much in there. Temperature, this is when you can start, if the color's not quite right. You know, if you need to make it a little less warm or a little more warm, you can adjust that. You can see looks like there's kind of a bit of a green in here, so if we push, not too much. So if we did that, maybe not quite that much, maybe about 20. Just to take a little bit of that green out. See, if I undo, you can see it's kind of green. Right there, takes a little bit of the green out. These you will come back to later once you get the rest of the layers in here. Like I said, this is going to be done in 4 layers. That's all it takes to do this, what I'm going to show. Obviously it's taking a lot longer because I'm explaining it, but once you have this workflow down, you will pretty much be able to get one photo done, including windows, within about 8 to 10 minutes, and sometimes even less than that, because there's another workflow that involves using a flash, but we're not discussing that one in this one. But yeah, so you can, a little bit of a saturation or a little bit of a vibrance enhance, or if you need to take some of it a little way, but we'll just leave it right there at 10. That's the default that it comes in. But now if you look at the image, you see it's yellow. It's got that yellowness to it. And that's what happens when you take photos without a flash is it gives that yellowness. The flash removes that color and gives you more of a real color of the room. But we can fix that right here with purity highlights. And I just push that all the way up. You can see how it's pretty white. That's what it was before, and that's what it is now. You know, when you shoot these properties, especially the newer ones that are all modern, they always want them like as pure white as possible, even though that's not really true to the room, because you have a lot of colors bouncing around from the floor. You have the browns, greens here, you've got outside blues, you know, all that stuff is going to bounce around. So in reality, it's not pure white, but that's just become the norm of it. So that's before. Maybe like you and choose like, oh, I only like 50%, maybe 75, or you just go all the way. So right there. Shadows, you don't need to worry about those. Just leave those down. And that's pretty much it for the base color correction of your HDR photo. Okay, now we are going to move on to the next layer, and that's when I bring in one of our layers that we used as to merge the HDR, but I'm going to bring in the bright one. So I'm going to just take that, grab it, drop it over. All right, you can see over here to the right under layers, we now have two. This is our base, and this is the new one that we just dropped in. And turn it off, you can see it jumps. By the way, sometimes these are closed, like you see this, but you don't see anything underneath it. By accident or whatever, for whatever reason, you just gotta click on it again and it'll open up. So sometimes those are hidden and you forgot where they were. All right, so same thing with this layer. We start with that layer, make sure you're clicked on it. Go down to, we're not gonna do all that color adjustment, it's just a couple tweaks here. One is the lens. And usually once you set the first one and you add more layers that are the similar photo with the wide angle lens, as soon as you do that, it automatically pops to the setting you said last time. So if you turn it on and off, it matches perfectly. It's not shifted in any way. So that's all I do for there. Under tone and color, because it does bring in the yellowness again, I just push that all the way up. There's our white. See, cool, everything's nice and white, but we're going to go here and then change this to screen. Now you can see how that just, I use this as like a brightening help layer. You see, oh, that's obviously too much. So what you do is once you've set it to screen, you come over to opacity, and you can use this as your, just a little bit of an enhance as you need it to get it brighter without pushing up actual levels and introducing more noise. So we start at 0, slowly move up. Usually you'll be between 30 to 50%. That's usually a whatever, good area. So if I just leave that there, 40, that was before, and that was after. You can see, like, nothing's really, don't worry about the windows because this is a separate thing. But so this will get all messed up and blown out by us adjusting here, but this is another layer anyways. But if you start looking at even here and here, lights here, nothing's blown out. We've just added a brightness enhancer, if you want to call it. And it also helped with making the place even more white. So that's it for that. All right, so after you have done the screen, this layer, the second layer, and made it screen, chosen your specific opacity level to enhance the color a little bit, now you can just right click and duplicate. And then then we change that to soft light. And you can see by that, doing that, really all we did, like we made things maybe a little bit brighter, which is fine, that's what you want. But all we did is, you can see that by changing that to soft light, we brought back some of the contrast in the woods, the chairs, the plant, everything else. I mean, the whole image has been contrasted, but you can see it brought back some of the nice darkness and everything else in there. So, and that's it. That's the only reason that layer is for. And once again, you can change your opacity level if you want to, how much you ever want to increase the contrast of it, like that. So I'm just gonna go back to 40, turn that off. Yeah, good. Now for the windows, and this is where the underexposed layer down here comes in handy, or comes into effect. So there is no way to ever properly expose a camera so the inside is nice and bright and the windows are not blown out and looked perfect with the colors you see through them. It's just, you can't get both. Depending on the time of day, you can get something that's a bit of a middle ground because the sun is lower, so it's not as much blown out as it is during the middle of the day, or just, you know, during the brighter times. So that could help, but you're still never going to get the proper exposure for both. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the underexposed layer, grab it, drop it in, make sure you're on the right layer right there. See, here's our 4 layers. That's it. That's all we're doing. And then you turn on the lens correction, and you see, perfectly aligned. Now, if you see when I turn this on, you see how good the windows look right there. But the inside's obviously really dark, so that's not what we want. I will usually take this from normal to multiply because it gives a more of a contrast with the colors and stuff outside. Not a big deal right now, but just you'll see once we go through some editing here. But I usually like to give it on multiply because of, if you look at what happens outside compared to multiply from normal. So if I undo, you see how it enhances the colors a little bit. But all right, so make sure you're on this layer. You can kind of see these little right here. This is your mask layer. I usually just click on it just to make sure I'm on that layer. And then you want to right click and invert. So what we did there was a quick way of just erasing the whole image in a mask form. So it's still there. We have to just draw it back. Now we come over to these tools. So you see this one's already selected by default. When you go into mask mode, it automatically switches to that. And then it's kind of like the default tool, but if you click here, you have more. We're going to use line mask, and we're going, you see right here, you have erase and paint. We're going to paint back, You click it, see how it's white now? So erase, paint. I usually will put like a 1 or 2 feather in there just to give it a little bit of softness. You don't need much. You'll be able to tell sometimes if you go too much. So now we're going to zoom into these windows right here. It's kind of hard to see the little crosshair thing right there. But there's a couple ways you can do it. One is you do Command plus or minus to zoom, or you can hold Option down and use your scroll wheel. So, and then from here you can see it's off here. If you push the space bar, and you can move your image around. Now it kind of stutters, you know, if you have a faster computer, the more powerful computer. You got to remember this is a raw image, so it's a lot of data and, you know, image quality or whatever you want to call it that it has to redraw. So not a big deal. That's just what's supposed to happen. So I'm going to zoom way in as much as I can. That's as far as I can go. Once again, use my hand with the space bar and using the crosshairs, a little bit hard to see. You can see where our windows are. You just want to start, just the window meets the frame, click, point, let go. Another one right there. We can pretty much go straight here because the handle's not covering the window. If it did, then you would put a click, a point, a point, and a point and kind of draw around it, but we can just go straight. I'm gonna go to right here. Straight edges make things much easier, but we're gonna run into some curves. So click, point, click. This one's curved, but you really can't tell that much. So here we're gonna get into some curves. I'm going to put one there and maybe one right here. Don't worry about the curve part, I'll show you. We just need the points right now. So we go from here to here. Maybe from here to here. One about there. About there. More, and spacebar hand so you can draw, but so you don't have to zoom in and out. Click, close the curve. You see how this turned into a paint bucket with an X? So when you click, it's gonna put the image back. It's gonna paint that image back there, but we don't want to do that just yet. And the reason why is we want to fix our curve. You can see as even though I'm here and I roll over this, a point appears that's in the center, and that's where you can grab like I did right here, and you can bend. That's why we didn't go click, 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 trying to do a straight line curve. We can actually physically curve the curve so it's more natural. That's why you just need to do a couple basic points. And this one, just a little bit where we're gonna pull it down. And you can see you can pull it and it automatically adjusts its bend. So right there. So the reason we did this first before painting and then going after, adjusting those after, sometimes when you do this, you can see the image is back, and then you go back and adjust these, it doesn't adjust right. Like if I grab this point here, you can see how it's changing. It's actually changing the mask. Sometimes it gets stuck and that doesn't happen, so it's just better not to do that, but that's what happens. One other thing here is, I think this is an ON1 glitch that's been around for a while and it's never fixed, because what I'm using ON1 for is not what people use it for. They use it for just one photo at a time, so I'm going beyond what it's meant to do. But as once again, you roll over a center point between 2 points, but you can see how the image is, even though the line is straight, the color went not quite right. You just have to grab it and remove it again, and you can see the color's fixed. And it's just something with long vertical spans that it has issues. See, once again, like there, and then you just move it, grab it, move it, put it back, and the image is straight. So now if we zoom all the way back out, which shortcut is Command 0. And if we just click this tool, there's our window right there. Let me turn that off. There's our perfect window. And we're gonna adjust something here, but I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so that's a piece, and this is, now if we go back to our tool, zoom all the way back in. You're gonna see there's these little slivers of areas that you will have to mask. And this is what I was saying about when you use a flash in a certain way for Windows, this becomes much easier. But I don't want to confuse you guys right now. So you click, point, right there, maybe about there, there, there. And sometimes it's because it's such a small area, the paint bucket doesn't come. So you can just grab a point, make it bigger. Whoops, got to go back to paint, do that, and then push it back. And there you go. So now let's move on to the other window. And I'll show you a little trick I discovered, because obviously you don't want to go mask every one of these little leaves. That would suck. But let's start with the easy part. Point, point. Right about there. Click, click. Maybe about there. There. You'll find your own workflow once you start going. Right there. There. Don't worry about the leaves. We're just going to go straight across them. Right there. And paint. So we got to remember to fix our vertical just by grabbing, pushing back. Same like here, you can see how it's ends. It's messed up on the inside. This one's messed up on the outside. So just grab, roll over, and the point appears. Grab it, pull it out, push it back, and so let's click off so we can see. And there's your window. And zoom all the way out. So this is what I do too. So like I said, we switch this to multiply. If we go back to normal, back to multiply, you see the color shifts just a little bit. It makes it a little more, like I said, the color is nicer, but it looks dark in some areas. So all you have to do, once again, is use your opacity as an adjustment to where you think the windows look good. Now it could be right around there, 75. Oops, see, that's what happens sometimes. So if I turn our windows layers off, that is our after, that is our before. That is not good. It's all washed out and blown out, and that's not what people want to see looking through the windows. Turn it back on, right there. Looks pretty clean, but like I said, you can adjust it. If you're like, no, I want it a little bit more, maybe about 85, a little more darkness. You just kind of find that area, that point that looks as real as possible, and obviously not too oversaturated or or two under undercolor, whatever you want to call that. But so there's your windows. I mean, that's about it. There's going to be a couple more things. All right, so we're down to about the last two little things to make this image done. Once again, make sure you're clicked on the layer, mask. You can see it automatically turns into the masking tool just by clicking on the mask. If not, you just choose it over here. This is something I discovered by accident using a refine brush right here. Coming back to our tree, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Once again, hold down the space bar for the hand. We want to get as close as we can, so it makes it easier. You can do the size right here, see right there? Or you can do the left and right brackets, not parentheses, but the brackets as a shortcut to make it the brush bigger and smaller. Here are like different brush presets. They all do about the same. I really don't ever notice much difference in them. But you know, by default it's hair and branches. You can go to original. I don't know, let's see what diffuse edges does. So we're on erase. It looks like it disappeared, but you just gotta click and it'll come back. So now let's just see what that does. Right there. So this is what I was saying. Now we're going to come in with the brush and get rid of all the leaves right there. But I think original, even though this says diffuse edges, which I would think means soft, it's really not. I think I usually go to original, make it a little bit smaller, and you don't have to worry about staying in. You can kind of overlap the edge a little bit, and it kind of has a little bit of a smart to it, where it knows what you're trying to erase or paint right there. You see it's like very small, but it tries to stay within what the center area. But you won't see this very far away anyways. So you actually can kind of do this as well. You don't actually have to color in. You can just go around the edges. So something like that. You don't have to be precise. Do that. It automatically, erases the middle. You have these little parts which you can go back in and erase again, or paint back in. But I'm just showing you the tools on how to do it, and you can go from there. So let's work on the rest of our leaves here. See, when you use a flash in a certain way with Windows, you don't have to do any of this, and it makes things much faster and way better. I colored it in, but it's kind of just a default thing I do sometimes. Right there, maybe a little bit smaller. Just get that. This is where the shortcut brackets come in handy, instead of having to move the slider all the time, going back and forth. Just go like this, go like that. Not that you don't want to have a good perfect image, but sometimes these little details that aren't perfect won't be seen when you're zoomed all the way out anyways. So that's what I mean. That's what I would do as well, is I would make sure you don't see these little imperfections as much as possible. But right now I'm just showing you how to use the tools to get it done. Like that. We got a couple more leaves right here. Again. One little bit, you wouldn't even see that, but let's get it anyways. Go down to the sleeve. Let's try and grab this. Yeah, so if you try to pen tool this, it would not be a fun process to do. You would get a better edge for sure, but sometimes it's possible to get around it. Now if we zoom back out, see? You wouldn't even know that, like when we're close in, the edges aren't perfect. We probably can see because we knew, so we might see that little white, little highlights here and there, but you know, that's on you anyways. Like, I'm just showing you how to use the tools. And that's it. So that's our windows. Turn them off, turn them on. See, bad windows, good windows, done. I think the last tip in here is, you can see the room is mostly white, but there is a little bit of a yellow tint to some areas depending on the shading and the shadows, the light bouncing from outside, and so on. So we've already done what we can as far as with the purity slider that I showed earlier right here. You know, if I take that down, like me, that's, maybe we can go like 50, but that's more of what the room realistically looks like. But we'll leave that up. So we're mostly white, but it's might not be white enough. So now we can go effects, only on the base layer, only on the main base one, not the upper ones. Add filter, see black and white here. Good, there you go, done. But now the whole image is black and white, and you don't want that. So once again, make sure you're on that layer, just click on it just in case. Invert it, so we've basically erased it, and you see we're on the brush tool, but what we want is to paint it back. Make sure our feather is nice and high. You can, the opacity right here is the strength of the brush in painting it back, but we're just going to leave it at 100 and use our bracket keys to make the brush bigger. And here you don't have to be precise, because mostly you won't notice because we have a very soft fade feather on the brush. But now when we paint, now watch what happens. You can see right there, we're bringing back, yeah, I went over the tree there, but we're giving that nice bright white that everybody loves so much. So make this a little smaller because we're getting in harder areas here. Right there. Like I said, you kind of go over things. Mostly nobody's gonna be able to see what's happening because they did not see the before image. You did. So let's just see right there, a little bit there, a little bit there. Click and hold again. And you can see I'm going over furniture and the picture there. Going right over the fan. Going there a little bit. Even in here. A little click there. A little bit right there. That's pretty good. Just go quick over here. And that's not bad. Maybe if you want to make the brush a little smaller again, just to get a little bit more in these areas. But say you went over something you didn't want to, just come up here, go to erase like this frame, this photo, and just paint it back. Maybe that looks good, maybe it doesn't, whatever, but that's how you paint it back. Or the fan, bring some of the color back in the fan a little bit. Like click, click, click. Now, watch what happens. Just click off the tool, come back over to black and white. You can see this little thing. This is basically an eyeball that turns the effect on and off. Now watch. Before, after. There's that nice bright white that looks so modern, clean, and awesome. That's that subtle difference, but maybe you don't want it quite that much. Once again, you have your opacity here. If you don't want as much of that effect in there and you still want a little bit of the color in there, change that. So if I undo, there's all white, there's with a little bit of yellow, or room color. Maybe that's too much or not quite enough. Maybe go to 75. Very subtle difference. Just push that up. And that's it. So you can see we still have some good color here. If you wanted to paint that black and white over this as well, you could. But you have our color. I guess one last thing you could do, usually I do, is color enhancer. Because people always have green plants and things like that in there. Just color enhancer, choose green, and it finds anything that's a green color, like here, 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 some there, but you turn it off, you can see it's very subtle, but it does give it a little more green, just to help. And that is it. Like I said, 4 layers. That's all this took. A little bit of masking on our windows right there, and not the color enhancer. Close that. Here's our other layers, and a little bit of a black and white mask for the walls. You can see how simple that was. Under effects, develop is just our main colors, and you are done. That's all it takes. This is why I like to show my workflow over the traditional Adobe workflow everybody shows. That is very outdated, very just inconvenient workflow, where you start in Lightroom, You jump to Photoshop, you do all this work here that we did here with a lot more layers, and then you flatten those layers, which means you just destroyed all the work you did that makes it uneditable if you needed to go back and change it. And then you go back to Lightroom and export. I have done everything in keeping the original raw data of the photos within a raw editor with 4 layers and a couple little masks. That's it. Now, when you're all done, File, Export, expand the window a little bit, choose where you want to save it. So I'm going to choose, where I have all the project folder for that house. Right there, I've already done, obviously, so we're just doing another one. Open to enter. You don't have to, here's where you want to JPEG. This is the default settings. 85 is plenty. I don't worry about any of this. You just export the original raw size, and you can see right here what that size is. Straight from the camera. This is what the camera captured right there. That's what you edited, and that's what you're exporting, and you don't lose any quality from jumping from program to program and flattening. If you needed to come back and tweak something, you can. With the Adobe workflow, you can't. You have to do it all over again, or at least most of it again, because you've flattened your work layers in Photoshop, because that's how you have to bring it back into Lightroom, where here is all done in one program, 4 layers, a couple masks, and you're done. And you just hit export. You can see down here, right here, it's thinking. It's done. And I'm off screen right now, so I'm going to push the spacebar. If you don't know, some people don't know this, when you push a spacebar on a Mac and just highlight a JPEG or an image or a movie, it's like a quick preview play. It'll play videos, it'll open up a web browser and give you the full-size image. And there you go. This is the image we just created with 4 layers, a couple masks, and that's it. Done. Nothing's really blown out anywhere. You can still see the lights in here. Sometimes you might need to go in there and sort of erase a little bit in there if you want to. Like I said, those are all little tweaks that you will want to do if you want, or don't. Nobody's really going to notice the difference. And there you go. There's no hot spots anywhere. There's no, like, you have the blues purple here because that's what's actually coming through the window. So it's not going to be like brown over here like it is over here, because you have the light and the colors all coming through there. So this is normal. And that's it.